Thank you. I call the meeting to order, and it is 1:04 p.m. Thursday, February 23rd, 2023. I would like to begin by acknowledging that we are in the Robinson Huron Treaty Territory and that the land on which we are gathered is a traditional territory of the Shinneback, specifically the Garden River and Batchewana First Nation, as well as the Métis people. Roll call. John, yeah. The only person that is not here, and it's Marchie Bruni. Marchie is traveling as we are speaking. He is available by phone, only if necessary, okay? But he has expressed that he would be away in advance and he will not be attending the meeting. Eva, welcome. Stevenson, McLaughlin, Sarah, Lincoln, to James from Sault today, and Brian Sault Star. Welcome. Vicky Monto is here. Vicky, welcome. Bill Freeman is here. Welcome. Tom Gervais is here as well. And Sunny Spina. Hi, Sunny. Can you hear me? Okay. Well, I can see him.
He said yes.
Okay. Did I miss anybody? I think we got everybody. Any conflicts of interest declarations? Seeing none, we will move ahead. Questions and information arising out of the minutes and not otherwise on the agenda. Any questions?
No.
Seeing none. One, adoption of minutes. I need a mover and a seconder unless there's any kinds of questions.
Next one, move.
Ian?
Yep.
Moved by Ian, seconded by
I can second.
Lisa. I read the minutes of the regular meeting as presented, be hereby approved. In favor. Motion to accept the agenda, February 23rd, 2023, moved by
I can move. Sorry.
Lisa. And seconded by Ian. Resolved that the agenda of the regular meeting as presented be hereby approved. All in favor? Approved. Chief, your reports, communication reports, information only. Please go ahead with a special account ledger fund January 2023.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Welcome everybody, press and counselors and alike and board members. So we're just going to start off with the board account ledger. Really, this is an FYI. You can see the 2nd of February as a result of the motions at the last board meeting. Donations were made $1,500 to the Sault College bursaries, $500 to Acano, and the agreement of reimbursing legal costs that were identified at the last week's meeting of 1977.5. I have no further information on that, sir.
Any questions?
Okay, so we'll move on then to our overtime for the month of January. So we can see from your chart that we had this time last year we had 98,000 or almost 99,000 in overtime for January. This year we had 123,685. That's up significantly, and we had several operational issues. We had 3 arrests for a homicide that was being investigated last year, where we proceeded operationally on those homicide investigations. We had an attempt homicide in January. We had the biggest drug seizure in Sault Ste. Marie history, which was Project Otter, that was well publicized and demonstrated for the community. We also had the individual that was found in the vehicle with a loaded handgun and significant amount of narcotics. We also had a takedown of 2 homicide suspects from Thunder Bay that were alleged to have committed homicide in that jurisdiction. So all that added, we had a very busy operational month. And as you know, and we've spoken about before, when you have these involved investigations with a lot of time and labor, both from civilian and uniformed staff, it tends to spike our overtime because we have to do this in addition to our regular patrol and whatnot. Look at the next slide. We see sort of a consistent theme. 3-year monthly staff shortage overtime costs.
May I just ask a question?
Sure. Right.
So when we have a major event, so can that overtime be,
It is allotted to specific occurrences and we can break
Right.
all that down.
so we can see the major
Absolutely.
events if we
Yeah.
need to?
Because all that time would go in under one occurrence number or the specific occurrence number. And so those are the things that drive these things up. So when we go through our meetings, Angela, our finance coordinator, and Bob will indicate these are the spikes in our time over that month period.
Because then if we compare from year to year, then we can see if we've had 5 major events
Right.
and we've only had one the year previous, then, you know.
So
there's a
last
difference there.
January might have been a very, well, I don't want, but it was slower in occurrence workload. But remember, homicides, attempt homicides, and those arrests for other jurisdictions are very expensive because they're involved, they're interviews, and there's a variety of operational issues that go into it.
In the first 24 hours, sir, as you know, most people kind of know from common knowledge, TV and et cetera, but it's true. The first 24, 48 hours are crucial in those investigations. That's where all the overtime is incurred.
So it's all hands on deck.
All hands on deck.
Exactly. Okay, good, thank you.
So when we go to the 3-year, a monthly staff shortage overtime cost, you see in 22, we were 3308 and that jumped up to 23,000 due to staff shortages. And staff shortages are related to those additional occurrences that I just added. So we would have to call people on overtime in addition to the regular policing costs to mitigate that issue.
So Chief, in terms of adding to the complement, do you see that going down this year once they're fully trained?
So I have a great question, board member. Yes, obviously, if you have more people available to come out on regular time, then you're not going to have those overtime costs. And you, the board, have been good to us, certainly during your time as chair as well, where you gave us 138 to 135 to 142. And I've been clear with both the board and the mayor that we were able to take a little bit off that in our predictions of overtime next year, simply because we have 7 more or almost 1.8 additions to each platoon.
So are you able to do projections in terms of, you know, how many are going to be off on vacation, say in June, that you know that you can have people available so that we're not seeing those overtime costs?
So the collective agreement sort of supersedes what necessarily I would like to do with that. So the collective agreement will say during this time period, you have 3 or 4 off per shift.
Yep.
So that's more or less a constant though, over the time. The difficulty is predicting what operational issues are going to occur. So the regular staffing issues in terms of our regular workload is easy to predict. It's these spikes that you can't necessarily.
Well, that's what I mean is more the regular, like knowing that these are the vacation times.
So we know that.
Yeah.
A year in advance, right?
Right.
When they book their annual leave.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions?
One more sheet there. We go to the next one, which is sort of in a similar topic of staff overtime shortage costs. A different way to look at it. Again, we had 28 in SERB this year and 20 in patrol. So that adds up to your 23,000. We go to our occurrence workload. So what we're looking at is I'm going to take you to the December. Basically, it's a 12-month, but it's not the final year to date because we're still collecting that information. But this information shows what the year was like. So the most data gives you a much more thorough landscape or understanding of what what the year looked like in comparative purposes to 22. So we can see from your total there, our current workload is relatively stable in terms of a 3% decline, 2% up in reportable, 8% down in non-reportable. When we look at crimes of violence, we see we went from 4 to 3 homicides. Robberies are down from 118 to 57, which is 52%. Sex assaults are down 23%, 111 to 86. Remember, this is year to date comparative. When we go to the total crimes of property are down, and break and enters, we're down almost 29% from 875 in 21 to 625 this year. When you look at theft of vehicles, we're also down from 187 to 137, about 27%. Theft itself has remained relatively constant between the 2 years, going down 7.3%. Theft from motor vehicle, which affects lots of people, is down about 10% from 926 to 838. Mischief are down. When we go to the other section, we can see sudden deaths were relatively constant from 155 to 161.
Can I just have a clarity for sudden death, please, Chief?
Sure.
So would sudden death also include folks who have unfortunately died of overdoses
Yes.
or taken their own life? Plus, that
All
would
deaths.
include all deaths, include homicides. Okay, I just wanted clarity for that.
That's fine. Motor vehicle collisions are up a little, 25% from 1466 to 1829. Impaired driving is down about 15%. I draw your attention to bail violations, which we've been very vocal with the Federation of Northern Ontario Municipalities. It consists of mayors, councillors, board members. We see again that our bail violations are from 495 to 621, or 26%. And what that means is we're simply redoing when we release them, which we're under Bill C-75 obligated to do on the principle of restraint, R versus Annex, Supreme Court of Canada. What happens is we're simply bringing them back into the justice system multiple times. And on property offenses, I can tell you it is beyond reasonable to see an individual on release for 25 charges that are all property related. And I can tell you, I'm sure the board members can attest to this, many in the community are concerned. This is ridiculous. And thankfully, both federal ministers that I had the opportunity to be invited to speak to with the Ontario Association of Chiefs of Police all agreed that we need to look at the legislation, which we've been asking for 3 years. A little bit of pushback the odd time, but it's a good news story because they are going to look at the legislation. And we've always just asked, let's just examine the legislation and see if we can make it better than what it was intended to do in the first place. So that's a good news story from my perspective.
Also, the involvement with UNOM, because that was a big part of the discussions when I was at the conference last year, that they really were initiating. So it's good to know that they're following through with that.
Yeah,
Mhm.
good news story. And you know, FONOM, which is represented as well, my board chair was there, Sandra Hollingsworth from the city, a number of associations are all pleased that we continue the examination of the issues. And we have a meeting set for April 12th, I believe, in Timmins, where we're going to have more representation. There's about 4 variables that we're looking at that will tighten up the bail and make it more reasonable for public safety.
In terms of the Mental Health Act, for you, Mr. Chair, the reduction of 13.6%, are you seeing it an outcome from the Downtown Ambassador program that there are less calls because they are seeing to folks on the weekends, and or do you have is it reported? Do you know? Is it anecdotal?
We don't necessarily. Well, it's hard to know why they didn't call because they didn't call. But what I do know, and it's a really wonderful question, is that the Mental Health Association and that we've been working for is starting to collect this data now in terms of the number of people they've dealt with in crisis in the downtown core that can assist all of us. So the beauty of this is that if, the ambassador program, which we holistically support and wrote a letter to council to support, if they can deal with people in crisis before they need to call us, they're saving the community, our taxpayers, multiple responses from fire, police, and ambulance. So they're a wonderful program, and I totally endorse it. I just can't necessarily say that that's related to that.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, because then that's taking
Once
data
they
now.
have data,
Yeah,
Any other questions? Next section, Chief.
Okay, we'll go on to, use of force reports. So, we can't do necessarily the comparative here because we're doing the annual thing, but we can see, for the month of January, we had 7 use of force reports that were submitted, and this time last year we had 3. And you can read those use of force reports. They're sort of summarized there for the 23 incidents. We go to public complaints. We'll see that we had 5 new complaints in January. There is we don't necessarily always separate, like 2 or 3 of these could come from one complainant. So sometimes it's one complainant with multiple complaints, but we see that we're consistent from 22 to 23 and 8 at this time. For a travel log, for information only, you can see the travel for the service in front of you there. And I think, Mr. Chair, that's the amount of data on that.
Thank you. Any questions? Anything? Okay, we'll go to number 10, the new business, and I have the request for new business.
I think, Mr. Chair, we have number 9 yet to do.
Oh, I'm sorry, number 9, use of force annual report. Sorry.
So it's in your package. I'll just take you through it. Obviously, we're obligated by the Police Services Act to give you a summary. I want to applaud Brad Baber and his colleagues in our training bureau that collect this information as per the legislation and do a great, excellent job in summarizing it for us. I'll take you to page 2. We see a statistical overview at the bottom there, Lincoln. We see our use of force incidents are consistent with 2020 when we had 82. Last year we had 112, and then we're down to 83. You see our use of force reports are up a little bit from 122 to 149. And I'll take you then to the type of force used in the 2-year comparison table. Thank you, Lincoln. The thing that jumps up that many chiefs of police in this province have been saying is that our communities are getting extremely concerned with the amount of gun violence in our communities. Third item down, you see firearm drawn in 2021. You see 10, it jumps up to 28, 180% increase. Those are concerning. Although the conducted energy weapon deployed has went from 18 to 99 and displayed from 16 to 44. When you look at the type of force actually used in the next table, you'll see again, firearm drawn 3 times in 20, and in 21, 10, and then all the way to 28. So it went from 3, 10, and 28 in 2 years. That's concerning. When we go to subject behavior classification, and this is what we see when we get there, this is what the accused or the alleged accused has in their, at the time of the incident, we see firearms jump from 29 occurrences in 21 to 57 in 22, 96.5 variance. When we look at edged weapons, which are knives, went from 22 to 31. 41% increase. We go to the next, when we look at subject interactions, we see the numbers there, and they are consistent from year to year. And we put a summary of the use of force for the next few pages for you. That's my presentation.
Any questions with regard to the report?
Just had one question. Could you just describe what passive resistant is?
Yeah, I'll let Bob answer that.
Yeah,
So passive resistance, and short answer to that is passive resistance is the state an individual's in where they're resisting, but not actually assaulting.
not being aggressive
Or
or,
they're being aggressive in terms of they're not complying,
right,
they're not following officers' instructions,
No.
they're resisting arrest perhaps by not complying and not moving, but they're not actually being assaulted.
okay,
So that's a preliminary step to what typically is an engagement, which escalates.
right,
And then they would escalate from passive resistance to active resistance. And of course, officers' use of force and reactions to that would be in step to the use of force continuum
mhm,
as to what they use, what tactics they would use. So that's why that word is used, passive resistance versus the next one down, which is active resistance.
right. Yeah, I just wanted some clarification on that. Thank you.
Any further questions?
Good reports.
Seeing-
Just a comment, Mr. Chairman, they're good reports, and they give you a clear picture as to who and what, and where the crime is coming from. Good.
Thank you. I just have one comment, and that's the naloxone. Everyone is trained on that. And it's good to see that we have something like that, because as you see, the numbers go from 6 to 14. I'm assuming that we're saving lives at that.
Absolutely.
It's very good that we do that. Thanks. Any other questions, comments? Thank you. Now we're at new business, okay? Can we add, it's from Lisa, autism training via Peel Police,
Mhm,
please?
thank you.
And, Sarah, you got that? Okay,
Yeah.
Lisa, can you speak to it?
Sure, I just wanted to let, the chief and the deputy chief and the board know. So on November 4th, in Mississauga with Peel Region, there was an incident with a, non-speaking, autistic individual, Mr. Darwich. And, this is in my other world, being vice chair of Autism Ontario and G4G and being an autism mom. It's come to what was really an outcome was the Peel Police did do a statement on November 23rd. Stating that, they needed to look for better ways and recognizing that the situation was not handled well. Mr. Darwich is registered with the Vulnerable Persons Registry. However, that didn't make a difference with the escalation and him being tasered. So, at my last Autism Ontario meeting in January, Peel has reached out to a couple of different organizations. One being Carrie's Place Autism Services, as well as Autism Ontario. They've had one meeting. There's a second meeting tomorrow, actually with the group, and they're going to be formulating a training module for police services. So I just wanted our police service to know. I know, Deputy, you've got a good relationship with Peel. So it's in process. It's not completed. So I'll give whatever update I can when I know that that's done, but I would definitely reach out to Peel. On another side, we had, for the municipal autism strategy last night, we had we're doing updates. So we had, service providers, and organizations at City Hall for a couple hours. And definitely there were some concerns in the room concerning that, as well as how effective is the Vulnerable Persons Registry. So, I think that's something that we could definitely all help with coordination. But whatever information or updates I get, I will definitely share. And then I would just recommend that you reach out to Peel to see where the process is. But I think it's definitely important piece, when we're dealing with vulnerable, folks in our community. So I just wanted to let you know that that's happening.
Yeah, I know of the incident you speak, and we'll definitely do that.
Yeah, it was, pretty horrible. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Any questions or comments? And the second item in the new business, more of a housekeeping item. Marchi Bruni, just to make it official, has asked to join the negotiating committee, which we selected in the first meeting. So we would like to formalize it by having someone nominate him and second it so that he is on the negotiating committee with Lisa Bezo
Yeah, I'll nominate.
and myself. So Lisa nominates Marchi Bruni. All in favor? I'm seconder. Let's have a seconder nominate.
I'll second.
Ian will second it. All in favor? Eva, you're good. Thank you. Approved. Okay, unless there's any other questions or comments, that brings us to adjournment. Any questions from, I think, Sunny, you're the only one left, I think. Any questions or comments? We have a few minutes.
Sorry, I was on mute. I was just unmuting myself. Hi, everyone. How are you?
Yeah, so we just have a question, a small question period, if you have a question or not. But if you don't, that's great.
Sorry, I'm not sure if the computer's letting me unmute or not. Can you guys hear me talking now?
We can hear you.
Maybe perhaps you were trying to unmute me and I was trying to unmute myself at the same time, Sarah, and we were canceling myself out. Sorry about that.
No problem. Do you have any
Great to
questions?
see everyone. I mean, I've got a few things written down, but I can email them off. No problem.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. So I need a mover to adjourn the meeting.
I so move.
Ian, moved, seconded by Eva. All in favor? Approved. We will take a 5 or 10 minute break and then we will.
We're not gonna
enter
lose
the
Eva
conference.
there, though.
No,
No.
Eva, you're gonna stay on for the caucus meeting, okay?
Okay.
Okay, thank you, appreciate it.